The divorce papers still felt warm in Eliza's trembling hands when she saw the two pink lines. 5 years of a broken marriage ending on the same day she discovered she was finally pregnant, but there would be no celebration, no shared joy, just silence and ash. She tore the test in half and let the pieces fall. That night, her sister dragged her to an exclusive club where shadows moved like predators and power hung thick in the air. There, a man with winter gray eyes found her in the crowd, Luca Moretti, waiting as if he'd known she would come. Then everything went dark, and Eliza's life shattered into 1,000 dangerous pieces. If you want to know how far a woman will run to protect her child, and what happens when the most dangerous man alive finds her, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story reaches across the world. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Eliza Ricci sat in the sterile conference room of Morgan & Associates, the city's most expensive divorce attorneys, and stared at the document that would finally end 5 years of slow-motion collapse. Her marriage to Daniel hadn't died dramatically. It had withered, starved of honesty, and suffocated by betrayal. She'd found the messages 6 months ago, the photos, the hotel receipts, the realization that while she'd been trying desperately to save their relationship, he'd been building another one entirely. "Mrs. Ricci?" The lawyer's voice cut through her thoughts. "We just need your signature on pages 12, 15, and 23. Eliza picked up the pen. Her hand didn't shake. She'd cried all her tears weeks ago. Now there was only the quiet relief of an ending. She signed. "Congratulations," the lawyer said with practiced sympathy. "You're a free woman." Free. The word tasted bitter. Eliza gathered her purse and walked out of the office into the harsh afternoon sunlight. The city moved around her with indifferent velocity, people rushing to appointments, to lovers, to lives that made sense. She stood on the sidewalk feeling unmoored, a boat cut loose from its anchor. Her phone buzzed. Maya, please tell me it's done. Her younger sister, the only person who'd stood by her through the whole ugly dissolution. Eliza, it's done. Maya, good. You're coming out with me tonight. No arguments. Eliza, Maya, I really don't. Maya, 7 p.m. I'm picking you up. Wear something that makes you feel dangerous. Eliza almost smiled. Maya had always been the wild one. The sister who lived like consequences were optional. But tonight, Eliza just wanted to go home, pour a glass of wine, and process the fact that she was officially alone. She drove to the pharmacy instead. The thought had been whispering at the edges of her consciousness for weeks. She was late. Very late. But she'd been late before during stressful times, and the past 6 months had been nothing but stress. Still, something felt different this time. A heaviness in her breasts, a strange metallic taste in her mouth, a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't touch. She bought the pregnancy test with cash like a criminal. At home, in the bathroom of the apartment she'd rented after leaving Daniel, Eliza unwrapped the test with shaking hands. She and Daniel had tried for 3 years to get pregnant. 3 years of disappointment, of negative tests, of doctors who spoke in careful euphemisms about unexplained infertility and perhaps considering alternatives. And now, on the day she'd signed away her marriage, her body might finally be offering what she'd stopped praying for. She took the test. 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. When she looked down, 2 pink lines stared back at her, clear, unmistakable, devastating. Pregnant. She was pregnant. Eliza sank to the bathroom floor, the test clenched in her fist. A sound escaped her throat, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. The universe had a vicious sense of timing. For 3 years, she'd wanted nothing more than to see those 2 lines. She'd imagined the moment 1,000 times, the joy, the tears, running to tell Daniel, planning a nursery, choosing names. But not like this. Not alone. Not from a marriage that no longer existed. The test blurred in her vision. Without thinking, Eliza tore it in half, then quarters, then kept tearing until the pieces were too small to destroy further. She let them fall into the trash like confetti at a funeral. She wouldn't tell anyone. She couldn't. What would she even say? Surprise, I'm starting over at 32 with a divorce settlement and a baby whose father is already building a new life with someone else? No, she would handle this the way she'd handled everything else lately. Alone, in silence, one impossible day at a time. Sheb. Maya arrived at 7 sharp, looking like trouble in a black dress and heels that could double as weapons. "You look terrible," Maya announced, pushing past Eliza into the apartment. "Good thing I brought reinforcements." She held up a garment bag. "Maya, I'm really not in the mood, which is exactly why we're doing this." Maya unzipped the bag, revealing a deep emerald dress that Eliza would never have chosen for herself. "You just closed the worst chapter of your life. Tonight we celebrate." "Celebrate?" "Maya, I don't feel like celebrating." "Then fake it until you do." Maya's expression softened. "Liza, you've been in survival mode for months. One night. Just give me one night to remind you that you're still alive." Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to say that going to some club was the last thing she needed, especially now, especially with the secret she was carrying. But Maya was looking at her with such fierce love that Eliza found herself nodding. "One night? That's my girl." An hour later, Eliza barely recognized herself in the mirror. The emerald dress hugged curves she'd forgotten she had. Maya had done her makeup, smoky eyes, dark lips, the armor of a woman who wasn't falling apart. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders. She looked dangerous. She felt like a fraud. "Perfection," Maya declared. "Now let's go make some poor man's heart stop." The club was called Inferno, which should have been Eliza's first warning. It occupied the top 3 floors of a converted warehouse in the industrial district, the kind of place that didn't advertise because the right people already knew about it. Maya bypassed the line outside with a nod to the doorman, who waved them through like royalty. Inside, the music was a physical force, bass that vibrated through bone, lights that strobed in time with Eliza's accelerating heartbeat. Beautiful people moved through the space like schools of exotic fish, all perfectly styled danger and calculated indifference. "This is insane," Eliza shouted over the music. Maya grinned. "I know, isn't it perfect?" They found a spot at the bar. Maya ordered something complicated involving champagne and elderflower, while Eliza asked for club soda with lime. The bartender gave her a curious look but said nothing. "You're not drinking?" Maya asked. "Headache," Eliza lied. The truth sat heavy in her chest. She was pregnant, in a club, pretending to be someone she wasn't. This was a mistake. She should leave, go home, figure out what the hell she was going to do with her life. But before she could voice any of this, Maya's attention shifted to something over Eliza's shoulder. Her sister's expression changed, a flicker of something that looked almost like fear. "Maya? What?" "Don't turn around," Maya said quickly. "Just listen. I need to tell you something." The music seemed to grow louder, or maybe it was just Eliza's suddenly pounding heart. "Tell me what?" Maya's fingers tightened around her champagne flute. "The reason I brought you here tonight, it wasn't random. Someone wants to meet you." Ice flooded Eliza's veins. "What are you talking about?" "I'm so sorry, Liza. I didn't have a choice. I owe people, bad people, money I can't pay back. A lot of money. And they said if I brought you here tonight, they'd wipe my debt clean." Eliza stood so fast her bar stool nearly toppled. "Are you fucking kidding me?" "Liza, please. You sold me. Maya, what the hell did you do?" But Maya wasn't looking at her anymore. She was looking past her, and the fear in her eyes was now unmistakable. Eliza turned. A man stood 3 feet away, and the crowd seemed to part around him like water around stone. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes the color of winter storms. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Eliza's car, and he carried himself with the absolute certainty of someone who'd never been told no. But it was his eyes that stopped Eliza's breath. They locked onto her with an intensity that felt physical, like being pinned by searchlights. Recognition flickered in their depths, though Eliza had never seen this man before in her life. "Eliza Ricci," he said. His voice was deep, accented with something Mediterranean, Italian maybe. "I've been waiting for you." "I don't know you," Eliza managed. A slight smile curved his mouth. "Not yet, but you will." He extended his hand. "My name is Luca Moretti, and I have a proposition for you." "I'm not interested in—" "Your sister owes $300,000 to people who don't accept payment plans," Luca interrupted smoothly. "They were going to start taking payments in other ways, painful ways. I bought her debt." Eliza's world tilted. She looked at Maya, who had tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered. "I'm so sorry." "What do you want?" Eliza asked Luca, though she already knew the answer would be something she couldn't give. "A conversation. In private." Luca gestured toward a door marked VIP. 5 minutes of your time, and then you're free to leave if you wish. And if I refuse? Then your sister's debt remains unpaid, and the people who were planning to collect on it will resume their plans. His expression didn't change. I'm told they were quite creative in their collection methods. Eliza felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. This morning she'd signed divorce papers. This afternoon she'd discovered she was pregnant. And now some stranger who moved through the world like a predator was telling her that her sister's life hung in the balance of a conversation. "Just hear him out," Maya begged. "Please, Liza." Every instinct screamed at Eliza to run, but Maya was her sister, her only family, and the fear in her eyes was real. 5 minutes, Eliza said. Luca's smile widened fractionally. "That's all I need." He led her through the crowd, which parted before him with the unconscious deference people show apex predators. The VIP door opened into a quieter hallway, which led to a private room that looked more like a corporate office than a club space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city lights. Expensive leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures, and 2 men who stood like sentries on either side of the door. Eliza's pulse spiked. "I thought we were talking alone." "Their insurance," Luca said calmly. "I have enemies who would pay handsomely to see me dead. The precaution isn't for you, it's for them." He gestured to a leather sofa. "Please, sit." Eliza remained standing. "You have 5 minutes. Start talking." Luca moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the powerful man he clearly was. "Tell me, Eliza, what do you know about your sister's gambling habits?" "Maya doesn't gamble." "She does. Quite compulsively, actually. Online poker, sports betting, some ventures into crypto trading that could charitably be called gambling." He turned to face her. "Over the past 18 months, she's accumulated significant debt with some very dangerous people." "How much?" $347,000. The number hit like a physical blow. Eliza gripped the back of the sofa to steady herself. "That's impossible." "I wish it were. The people she owes don't operate on credit. They were planning to make an example of her." His expression darkened. "Your sister would not have enjoyed their methods. Why do you care? Why buy her debt?" "Because," Luca said simply, "I wanted to meet you." The room seemed to shrink. "Me? Why?" "You're recently divorced, no children. Your ex-husband is already engaged to his paralegal. You work as a research librarian at the university, you drive a 10-year-old Honda, and you haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. You're careful with money, loyal to people who don't deserve it, and you've spent the last 5 years trying to fix a marriage that was broken before it began." Eliza's blood ran cold. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know things about people who interest me." He took a step closer. "And you, Eliza Ricci, have interested me for quite some time." "That's insane. We've never met." "No, but I've been watching you." The casual admission should have terrified her. Instead, Eliza felt a strange calm settle over her, the calm of someone who'd already hit bottom and discovered there was nowhere left to fall. "So this is some kind of stalker situation? You obsess over random women and blackmail their families to force meetings?" Luca laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his severe features. "Nothing so pedestrian. I don't need to blackmail women into my bed, Eliza. They come willingly." "Then what do you want?" He moved closer until only a few feet separated them. This close, Eliza could see flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell the expensive cologne he wore, something dark and woodsy that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "I want you to work for me," he said. Of all the things Eliza had expected, that wasn't it. "Work for you?" "I have business interests that require someone with your particular skills. Research, information verification, due diligence. You're meticulous, trustworthy, and you have access to academic databases most private investigators would kill for." "I have a job, which pays $42,000 a year before taxes. I'm offering you 5 times that, plus benefits, plus immediate clearance of your sister's debt." The number made Eliza's head spin. For what? What kind of business interests need that kind of researcher? The kind that can't afford mistakes. Luca's expression was unreadable. I import and export various goods. Sometimes those transactions require extensive background research on potential partners. You would provide that research. Eliza wasn't stupid. Men who operated from VIP rooms in exclusive clubs and talked about importing goods weren't running legitimate businesses. You mean you want me to help you with illegal activities? I mean, I want you to do research. What I do with that research is my concern. And if I say no, then your sister's debt reverts to its original holders, who have no interest in payment plans or mercy. He said it without emotion, like reading stock prices. They'll start with her fingers, I'm told, work their way up to more creative solutions. Nausea rose in Eliza's throat. You're a monster. I'm a businessman who sees an opportunity for mutually beneficial arrangement. You get financial security and your sister's safety. I get a skilled researcher. No one has to lose fingers. There's more to this, Eliza said. No one pays someone $200,000 a year just to do research. Luca smiled, the expression of a chess player who'd just cornered a queen. You're right, there is one other condition. Of course there is. I need you to live in my household. The work requires discretion and immediate availability. You would have your own suite, complete privacy, access to whatever resources you need. But you would need to be on site. Let me get this straight. You want me to live with you, work for you, and help you with whatever illegal empire you're running, all to save my sister from her own stupidity? When you put it like that, it sounds almost romantic. It sounds like indentured servitude. It's a job offer with unusual terms. Luca moved to a small bar in the corner and poured himself 2 fingers of what looked like very expensive scotch. You have until midnight to decide. Eliza laughed, a harsh, broken sound. That's 3 hours from now. Then you'd better think quickly. And if I run? If I just take my sister and disappear? The men who originally held her debt have resources across multiple states. You wouldn't make it to the state line. He took a sip of scotch. Besides, running is what your ex-husband did. I didn't take you for a coward. The barb hit its mark. Eliza had spent 5 years watching Daniel run from responsibility, from honesty, from her. She'd sworn she would never be that person. But this wasn't running. This was survival. I need to talk to Maya. Of course. Luca gestured to the door. Take all the time you need. Just remember, midnight. Eliza walked out on shaking legs through the hallway, back into the club, where the music was still pounding and people were still dancing like the world wasn't ending. She found Maya at the bar, her makeup smeared from crying. I'm so sorry, Maya said immediately. Eliza, I'm so... How did this happen? Eliza cut her off. $300,000, Maya? How? Maya's face crumpled. It started small, just a few online poker games. But then I started winning, and it felt so good, to be good at something. And when I started losing, I thought I could win it back. I kept thinking the next hand would be the one. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were already drowning with Daniel. I didn't want to add to your problems. So instead you made a deal with a criminal to sell me like property? It's not like that. Luca Moretti, he's powerful, yes. Dangerous, yes. But he's not cruel. He could have asked for so much worse. Eliza stared at her sister. What do you know about him? Just rumors that he runs half the underground economy in 3 states, that politicians and police commissioners take his calls, that he's never been arrested, never been charged, never even been seriously investigated. Maya grabbed Eliza's hand, but also that he keeps his word. If he says he'll clear my debt, he will. If he says he'll keep you safe, he will. Safe from what? From him? From everyone else. The words hung between them, heavy with implications Eliza didn't want to examine. I can't believe you did this, Eliza whispered. I know. I'm a terrible person. I'm selfish and stupid, and I don't deserve a sister like you. Tears streamed down Maya's face. But please, Liza, please don't let them hurt me. I'm scared. And there it was, the truth beneath all the rationalizations. Maya was scared, and she'd done what scared people do. She'd sacrificed someone else to save herself. Eliza should have been furious. She should have walked away and let Maya face the consequences of her own actions. But all she could think about was the pregnancy test she'd torn apart hours ago, the secret she carried, the impossible choice she now faced: save her sister and sacrifice her own freedom, or save herself and live with the guilt of Maya's destruction. "I need air," Eliza said. She pushed through the crowd and out a side door that led to a balcony overlooking the city. The November wind cut through her thin dress, but she welcomed the cold. It made everything feel real again. Below, the city glittered like scattered diamonds. Somewhere down there were people living normal lives. People who weren't pregnant and divorced and being blackmailed into working for criminals. People who made sense. Eliza pressed her hands to her still flat stomach. A baby. She was going to have a baby. The thought kept circling back, no matter how hard she tried to push it away. In 6 months, maybe 7, she would be responsible for another life. A tiny human who would depend on her for everything. How could she bring a child into this mess? How could she not? Quite a view. Eliza spun. Luca had joined her on the balcony, his suit jacket draped over one arm. He'd loosened his tie, making him look fractionally less dangerous. Fractionally. "I thought I had until midnight," Eliza said. "You do. I just wanted to make sure you hadn't jumped." "Would you care if I had?" "Immensely. I'd lose a valuable potential employee and the paperwork would be extensive." Despite everything, Eliza almost smiled. "You're an asshole." "I've been called worse." Luca joined her at the railing, looking out over the city. "I know this isn't what you wanted. You blackmailed me using my sister's gambling debts. What gave it away? But it is an opportunity." "How long have you been treading water, Eliza? How long have you been just surviving instead of living?" The question hit too close to home. "You don't know anything about my life. I know you spent 3 years trying to have a child with a man who is already planning his exit. I know you work a job that bores you because it's safe and predictable. I know you haven't bought yourself anything frivolous in over a year, because every spare dollar goes to savings for a future you're not sure will ever come." He turned to look at her. "I know you're tired of being invisible." Eliza's breath caught. "How dare you? I'm offering you a chance to step into the light, to matter, to be seen. By becoming your employee, your prisoner? By becoming someone who takes what she wants instead of waiting for permission to exist." His eyes held hers. "I think you're stronger than you know, Eliza Ricci. I think you've spent so long making yourself small to fit into other people's lives that you've forgotten what it feels like to take up space. And you're going to teach me? A criminal who blackmails women? I'm going to give you a choice. Real freedom requires power, and power requires resources. I'm offering you both." He handed her a business card with nothing but a phone number. "Midnight, Eliza. Call this number with your decision." Then he left her alone with the wind and the city lights, and a choice that felt like no choice at all. Eliza stood on that balcony until her fingers went numb from cold. She thought about Maya, selfish and scared and sorry. She thought about Daniel and the baby he'd never know about. She thought about the pregnancy test in pieces in her trash can. She thought about the next 18 years, raising a child alone on a librarian's salary, watching every penny, choosing between necessities. And she thought about Luca Moretti's eyes, and the way he'd looked at her like she was something rare and valuable, instead of something broken and disposable. At 11:47 p.m., Eliza pulled out her phone. She stared at the number on the business card. At 11:52, she dialed. He answered on the first ring. "Your decision?" "1 year," Eliza said. "I'll work for you for 1 year. At the end of that year, my sister's debt is cleared and I walk away free. No strings, no obligations, no extensions. Done." The immediate agreement made her suspicious. "That's it? You're not going to negotiate?" "I know a good deal when I hear one." There was something in his voice. Satisfaction, maybe, or triumph. "My driver will pick you up tomorrow at noon. Pack light. Everything else will be provided." "Luca." "Yes?" 100 questions crowded Eliza's tongue. What kind of research would she be doing? What were his real intentions? Why her specifically? But only one question made it out. "Why are you doing this?" Silence stretched across the line. Then, "Because everyone deserves a chance to rewrite their story, Eliza. Even me." He hung up. Eliza stood on the balcony, phone clutched in her frozen hand, and wondered what kind of deal she'd just made. Wondered if she'd saved her sister or sold her own soul. Wondered what Luca Moretti really wanted from her. The baby inside her, still barely more than a collection of cells, had no idea what world it was being born into. Neither did Eliza. But at midnight on a Friday in November, standing on a balcony above a city that sparkled with lies and possibility, Eliza Ricci made a choice. She stepped away from the edge, walked back into the club, and found her sister. "It's done," she said. Maya's face crumpled with relief. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Don't!" Eliza's voice was ice. "I'm doing this to save you, but we're not okay. We won't be okay for a very long time. I know. I'll make it up to you. I swear." "You can't. There's no making this up." Eliza grabbed her coat. "But you're still my sister, and I love you, even when I shouldn't." She left Maya crying at the bar. She left Inferno and its beautiful predators. She got in a cab and went home to her small apartment with its secondhand furniture and its trash can full of torn pregnancy tests. Tomorrow, her life would change. Tomorrow, she would step into Luca Moretti's world. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment of grief for the life she'd imagined, the simple, safe existence that was now forever out of reach. In her bathroom, Eliza looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked like a stranger, strong, dangerous, desperate. She pressed her hand to her stomach. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the impossible miracle growing there. "I'm so sorry. I'll do better. I'll find a way to keep you safe. I promise." The woman in the mirror didn't answer. She just stared back with eyes that had seen too much and decided to survive anyway. Outside, the city moved through its Friday night rhythms, oblivious to the deals being struck in its shadows, oblivious to the woman who'd just traded her freedom for her sister's safety, oblivious to the child who would be born into a world of beautiful monsters and dangerous choices. Eliza Ricci turned off the bathroom light and went to pack a bag for a future she couldn't predict. And in a penthouse across the city, Luca Moretti stood at his own window, looking out at lights that might have included hers, and smiled. The game had finally begun. The black Mercedes arrived at exactly noon, as promised. Eliza watched from her apartment window as the driver, a compact man with the posture of a soldier, stepped out and scanned the street with professional thoroughness before approaching her building. She'd spent the morning packing a single suitcase, choosing clothes with the numb efficiency of someone preparing for surgery. Practical items. Nothing sentimental. She was going to work, not to war. Though increasingly, the distinction felt thin. Her phone buzzed. Maya, for the 15th time that morning. Maya. "Please talk to me." Maya. "I know you're angry." Maya. "Just let me know you're okay." Eliza silenced the phone without responding. She wasn't ready to forgive, and she wasn't enough of a liar to pretend otherwise. The intercom crackled. "Miss Ricci, your car is here." No turning back now. Eliza took one last look at the apartment that had been her refuge for 6 months. Small, drafty, furnished with cast-offs and hope. It had never felt like home, but it had been hers. Safe. Predictable. She picked up her suitcase and walked out, locking the door on that temporary life. The driver introduced himself as Marco and said nothing else during the 40-minute drive into the hills north of the city. Eliza watched familiar streets give way to unfamiliar affluence, estates hidden behind gates and ancient trees, properties measured in acres rather than square feet, old money and new power, existing in careful segregation from the ordinary world. They turned onto a private road that wound through forest before emerging at gates that looked designed to repel a medieval siege. Marco pressed a code into a sleek panel, and the gate swung open silently. The house beyond made Eliza's breath catch. It wasn't a house. It was an estate, a sprawling modern structure of glass and stone that seemed to grow organically from the hillside. Clean lines and dramatic angles, floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the forest, architecture that whispered of wealth so vast it didn't need to shout. "Welcome to Belvedere," Marco said, the first words he'd spoken since introducing himself. The car stopped in a circular drive where a woman in her 50s stood waiting. She had steel-gray hair pulled into an elegant twist and the bearing of someone accustomed to running complicated operations. "Ms. Ricci," the woman said as Marco opened Eliza's door. "I'm Elena Russo, Mr. Moretti's estate manager. Welcome. Eliza stepped out, feeling desperately underdressed in jeans and a simple sweater. Thank you. I'll show you to your quarters and give you time to settle. Mr. Moretti will meet with you this evening to discuss your position. Elena's tone was professionally warm, but carefully neutral, a woman who'd learned not to ask questions about her employer's arrangements. This way, please. But so the house's interior matched its exterior promise. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality art, furniture that looked both impossibly expensive and actually comfortable. But what struck Eliza most was the light. Every room seemed designed to capture and amplify natural illumination, creating spaces that felt open despite their grandeur. The main house has 42 rooms across 3 levels, Elena explained as they walked. You'll have access to most areas, the library, gym, pool, gardens, kitchen. Mr. Moretti's private office and personal quarters are off limits, without invitation. They climbed a sweeping staircase to the second floor, then down a hallway lined with windows overlooking manicured gardens. This will be your suite, Elena said, opening double doors. Eliza stepped inside and stopped. The space was larger than her entire apartment had been. A sitting room flowed into a bedroom with a king-size bed, both decorated in soft grays and creams. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed views of the forest. A laptop sat on an antique desk. Fresh flowers bloomed in crystal vases. You have a private bathroom through there, Elena continued, and a walk-in closet, though I understand you traveled light. We've taken the liberty of providing some essential items until you can shop for yourself. Mr. Moretti has also established an account for your personal needs. The details are in the welcome packet on the desk. Eliza's head spun. This is a lot. Mr. Moretti believes in treating his people well. Elena's expression gave nothing away. Dinner is at 7 in the small dining room. I'll have someone show you the way. Until then, please make yourself comfortable. If you need anything, dial 0 on any house phone. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Alone, Eliza sank onto the impossibly soft sofa and tried to process the gilded cage she'd just entered. Her suite alone probably cost more to maintain than she'd earned in a year. The casual luxury made her skin crawl. Not because it wasn't beautiful, but because beauty like this always came with a price. And she'd already agreed to pay it. Her hand drifted to her stomach. Still flat, still secret. She'd made a doctor's appointment for next week using a clinic across town, paying cash, using her maiden name. She needed to know for certain. Needed to understand what she was dealing with before this pregnancy became impossible to hide. If she was even keeping it. The thought made her nauseous. She'd wanted a baby for so long, but wanting a child and being able to provide for one were different things entirely. And now, trapped in this arrangement with Luca Moretti, pregnant with her ex-husband's child, Eliza wasn't sure she had the right to make a choice that would affect 3 lives instead of 2. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Come in, Eliza called, expecting Elena. Instead, a young woman in her 20s entered, carrying garment bags. She had kind eyes and the careful friendliness of household staff trained not to overstep. Ms. Ricci, I'm Sophia. Ms. Russo asked me to bring these up. She hung the garment bags in the closet. They're just basics until you have a chance to shop. Mr. Moretti wanted to make sure you had options for dinner tonight. Eliza joined her in the closet, which was roughly the size of her old bedroom. Inside the bags were dresses, slacks, blouses, all in her size. Expensive fabrics, understated elegance, nothing flashy, but everything quality. How did he know my size? Eliza asked. Sophia smiled. Mr. Moretti is very thorough. The answer didn't comfort her. After Sophia left, Eliza spent the afternoon exploring her suite and trying not to think about the evening ahead. The bathroom was a study in marble and luxury. A soaking tub that could fit 3 people, a shower with enough settings to qualify as a water park, heated floors, designer toiletries. The closet held not just the clothes Sophia had brought, but also shoes, accessories, even lingerie in her exact sizes. Very thorough indeed. At 6:30, Eliza showered and dressed in one of the provided outfits. Fitted black pants and a silk blouse in deep burgundy. Simple gold jewelry that she suspected was real. She looked at herself in the full-length mirror and barely recognized the polished woman staring back. She looked like she belonged here. The realization terrified her. Sophia appeared at exactly 6:45 to escort her to dinner. They descended the staircase and wound through the house to a room Eliza hadn't seen during her initial tour. Smaller than she'd expected from the word dining, an intimate space with a table that could seat 8 but was set for 2. Candles flickered in silver holders. Wine glasses caught the light. Luca stood by the windows looking out at the darkening gardens. He'd traded his club attire for casual elegance, dark jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. The informal clothing should have made him less intimidating. It didn't. He turned as she entered. "Eliza, you look beautiful." "Thank you for the clothes. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. You're in my home now. I take care of what's mine." He gestured to the table. "Please sit. I hope you're hungry." The possessive phrasing set her teeth on edge, but Eliza sat. A staff member she hadn't met appeared with the first course, a delicate salad with ingredients Eliza couldn't identify, but that tasted like springtime. "Tell me," Luca said, picking up his wine glass, "how was your first day at Belvedere?" "Overwhelming. Your home is impressive. It's a fortress masquerading as a house. All this beauty serves a purpose." He took a sip of wine. "You're not drinking?" Eliza looked at her water glass. "I don't drink much." "Fair enough." He set his own glass down, mirroring her choice. "I want you to be comfortable here, Eliza. This arrangement works best when both parties benefit. I'm here because you blackmailed me using my sister's debts. Comfort seems like a generous interpretation. I gave you a choice. Between saving my sister and abandoning her to violent criminals. That's not a choice, that's coercion dressed up with better grammar." Luca smiled. "You're direct. I appreciate that. Most people in your position would be too terrified to speak honestly. Should I be terrified? Of me? No, I have no intention of hurting you." He leaned back in his chair. "Of the situation? Perhaps. Fear can be clarifying. Is that what you want? Me afraid and compliant? I want you aware. There's a difference." The staff member reappeared with the second course, sea bass with some kind of citrus glaze. "The work I do requires absolute discretion and complete loyalty. I brought you here because you possess both qualities naturally, but I need you to understand the stakes. The people I do business with don't tolerate mistakes or betrayals." "What kind of business exactly?" "Import and export, as I mentioned. Sometimes those goods are unconventional." "You mean illegal?" "I mean expensive and highly regulated. The distinction matters in certain circles." Eliza set down her fork. "I'm not stupid, Luca. I know you're not running a legitimate operation, but I need to understand what I'm actually involved in before I start doing research for you." He studied her for a long moment. "Fair enough. I facilitate the movement of high-value items across international borders. Sometimes those items are art that customs officials would prefer remain in their countries of origin. Sometimes they're antiquities of questionable provenance. Sometimes they're pharmaceuticals not yet approved in certain markets." "You're a smuggler." "That's a crude term for a sophisticated operation." He cut his fish with surgical precision. "I prefer to think of myself as someone who recognizes that borders are artificial constructs designed to limit free trade and maximize government control." "And you need a researcher because every transaction involves multiple parties across multiple jurisdictions, and I need to know exactly who I'm dealing with before I commit resources. Are they legitimate buyers or government plants? Are their financial records authentic or elaborate fictions? Can they deliver what they promise, or are they setting a trap?" He met her eyes. "That's where you come in. You have access to academic databases, archival records, cultural registries that most investigators can't touch. You can verify authenticity, trace ownership, confirm identities, all the background work that keeps me alive and out of prison." The clinical explanation made it sound almost reasonable. Almost. "And if I find something in my research that suggests a deal is dangerous, then I don't make the deal. Your job is to find truth, Eliza. What I do with that truth is my responsibility, not yours." That's a convenient moral loophole. It's a practical division of labor. He pushed his plate aside, barely touched. "You seem to think I'm asking you to become a criminal. I'm not. I'm asking you to do research, the same work you did at the university, just for a private client with unusual needs." "Unusual needs that include smuggling and operating outside the law." Yes, but your research itself is completely legal. You're not stealing anything, forging anything, or lying to anyone. You're simply finding information that already exists. Eliza wanted to argue, to find the fatal flaw in his logic, but exhaustion pulled at her. She'd been awake since before dawn. Her stomach was churning with morning sickness disguised as stress, and she was sitting across from one of the most dangerous men in 3 states discussing the ethics of complicity. "I need air," she said, standing abruptly. Luca rose smoothly. "The garden is lovely this time of evening. I'll show you." "I can find it myself." "I'm sure you can, but I'd like to join you if you'll allow it." It wasn't really a question, but Eliza nodded anyway. They walked through French doors onto a terrace that overlooked gardens lit by subtle landscape lighting. The November air was crisp, but not yet brutal, carrying the scent of pine and something floral that shouldn't have been blooming this late in the season. "Greenhouse orchids," Luca said, noticing her confusion. "Elena has a gift for coaxing beauty out of season." They walked in silence down a stone path that wound between perfectly manicured beds. Eliza wrapped her arms around herself, less from cold than from the need to hold something together. "You're pregnant," Luca said quietly. Eliza froze. "What?" "You're pregnant. That's why you're not drinking, why you barely touched your food, why you keep pressing your hand to your stomach when you think no one is watching." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "How far along?" Terror flooded through her. "That's none of your business." "Everything about you is my business now. We established that when you agreed to work for me." His expression was unreadable in the dim light. "Is it your ex-husband's?" "I'm not discussing this with you." "You don't have to. The timeline is obvious." He resumed walking, hands in his pockets. "Does he know?" "No, and he never will." The words came out harder than she'd intended. "I signed the divorce papers the same day I found out. He's already engaged to someone else. This baby has nothing to do with him." "Then whose baby is it?" "Mine!" Eliza's voice shook with fury. "Mine alone. I'm the one who's going to raise it, provide for it, protect it. Its father gave up that right when he chose to destroy our marriage." Luca nodded slowly. "And you think you can raise a child while working for me?" "I think I don't have a choice. Your arrangement was for 1 year. By the time that year is up, my sister's debt will be cleared and I'll have enough saved to start over somewhere else with my baby." "That's your plan? Take the money and run?" "That was always the plan. You bought 1 year of my life, Luca. Not forever." He stopped at a fountain where water trickled over stone in musical patterns. "What if I could offer you more than just 1 year?" "I don't want more. I want out." "What if I could offer you safety, real safety, for both you and your child? Protection that extends beyond money." Eliza laughed bitterly. "From who? From you?" "From everyone else." He turned to face her fully, his expression intense. "You think the world is safe for a single mother with no family support and a modest income? You think you can just disappear and start over? The father may not know about the baby now, but what happens when he finds out? When he decides he wants parental rights or visitation? When he uses the legal system to insert himself into your life whenever it's convenient for him? He won't. He doesn't want children with me. He made that very clear. People change their minds, especially when they realize what they've lost." Luca moved closer. "I'm offering you an alternative. Stay here. Work for me. Raise your child in a home where they'll want for nothing, where no one can hurt you or take them away from you. In exchange for what? My freedom? In exchange for loyalty, for trust." His voice dropped. "For time." The way he said it made Eliza's pulse spike. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm a patient man, Eliza. I'm willing to wait for things I want." "And what do you want?" He smiled, the expression of a predator who'd cornered prey but was enjoying the chase too much to strike immediately. "Right now, I want you to feel safe enough to sleep tonight. Everything else can wait." The non-answer was somehow more unsettling than honesty would have been. They walked back to the house in silence. At the base of the stairs leading to Eliza's suite, Luca stopped. "Your research work begins tomorrow. Elena will show you to the office I've prepared. You'll start with a background check on a potential art dealer in Florence, his credentials, his reputation, his financial solvency. Simple work to get you oriented." He handed her a folder. Everything you need is in here. Eliza took the folder. And the baby? Are you going to tell anyone? Your secret is safe with me. I have no interest in exposing you. He tilted his head slightly. But you should know that secrets have a way of becoming leverage. Guard yours carefully, Eliza. Not everyone in this house is as discreet as they appear. The warning sent ice down her spine. Is that a threat? It's advice. There's a difference. He walked away, leaving Eliza alone at the bottom of the stairs with a folder full of illegal work and a secret that felt like a ticking bomb. Back in her suite, Eliza opened the folder and found detailed information about a man named Alessandro Rinaldi. Photos, financial records, exhibition history, client testimonials. The kind of research that would have taken her weeks at the university was laid out in organized perfection, waiting for her to verify or disprove. She shouldn't do it. She should pack her bag, call a cab, and run as far as her modest savings would carry her. But Maya's terrified face floated in her memory, and beneath that, the secret weight of the baby growing inside her, a child who would need stability, security, resources she couldn't provide alone. Eliza opened her laptop and began to work. The days that followed developed a rhythm that felt almost normal. She woke early, ate breakfast alone in her suite to avoid morning sickness questions, then spent her days in the office Luca had prepared. A beautiful room lined with books and equipped with top-of-the-line research databases. She verified identities, traced provenance, confirmed financial histories. The work was intellectually engaging, occasionally fascinating, and morally complicated in ways she tried not to examine too closely. Luca appeared periodically to check her progress, their interactions professional and oddly companionable. He never mentioned the pregnancy again, never pressed for personal information, never crossed the invisible lines she'd drawn around herself, which made her trust him even less. "You're good at this," he said one afternoon, reading through her report on a supposed Caravaggio that she'd definitively proven was a 19th century forgery. "Better than the investigators I've used before." "I'm thorough," Eliza said. "It's not the same as good. It's exactly the same. In my world, thoroughness saves lives." He set the report down. "How are you feeling?" "Fine." "You're pale, and you've lost weight." "I said I'm fine." "Eliza." His voice carried gentle warning. "I have a doctor on retainer. Extremely discreet. If you need medical attention, I have a doctor. I'm handling it." "Where?" She glared at him. "That's not your concern. Everything about your well-being is my concern. You're living under my roof, working under my protection. If something happened to you because you were too stubborn to accept help, nothing is going to happen to me. I'm 12 weeks pregnant with a completely routine pregnancy. I take my vitamins, I eat reasonably well when I can keep food down, and I see my doctor every month. I'm fine." Luca studied her for a long moment. 12 weeks? So you were already pregnant when we met?" "Yes." "And you didn't think to mention this when you agreed to work for me?" "You didn't ask if I was pregnant. You asked if I would work for you and live in your house. I'm doing both, while growing a child. Women have been doing both for centuries. It's not revolutionary." Just a smile flickered across his face. "You're impossibly stubborn. I prefer self-sufficient. They're not mutually exclusive." He stood, moving to the window. "I'm hosting a dinner party next Friday. Important clients, potential partners. I need you there." Eliza's stomach dropped. "As what? Your researcher?" "As my guest. These people are art collectors, museum donors, cultural preservationists. Your expertise would be valuable in conversations. And in other words, you want me to help you charm people you're planning to do illegal business with. I want you to meet the people whose backgrounds you've been researching. See if your impressions match reality." He turned to face her. "Also, I think it would do you good to socialize. You've barely left this house in 3 weeks." "I'm working." "You're hiding. There's a difference." The observation stung because it was true. Eliza had been avoiding the world, cocooned in research and routine, pretending she could ignore the impossible situation she'd trapped herself in. "I don't have anything appropriate to wear to a fancy dinner party," she said finally. "Yes, you do. Check your closet." Sure enough, when Eliza returned to her suite that evening, she found 3 new evening gowns hanging in her closet, each stunning, each perfectly sized, each probably costing more than her old monthly rent. "Very thorough indeed." The week passed too quickly. Eliza's morning sickness began to ease, replaced by a strange energy that the pregnancy books called second trimester glow, but which felt more like restless anxiety. She could feel her body changing, her breasts fuller, her waist beginning to thicken. Soon she wouldn't be able to hide it anymore. She needed to tell Luca her plan. After the year was up, she'd take her savings and disappear. Find a small town somewhere, a place where Luca Moretti's reach didn't extend, where she could raise her daughter. She was convinced it was a girl. In peace. But first, she had to survive this dinner party. Friday arrived with the inevitability of execution day. Eliza spent the afternoon preparing, telling herself it was just another performance. She'd played roles before. The devoted wife, the patient professional, the woman who had everything under control. She could play the sophisticated researcher for one evening. She chose the midnight blue gown, elegant without being flashy, with clever draping that would hide her changing body. Elena sent Sophia to help with hair and makeup, transforming Eliza into someone who looked like they belonged in Luca's world. When she descended the stairs at 7, Luca was waiting in the foyer. He looked devastating in a tailored tuxedo, his dark hair swept back, his gray eyes sharp with approval as he watched her approach. "You're stunning," he said simply. "Thank you. You clean up reasonably well yourself." High praise. He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No, but I'm here anyway." They entered the main dining room where a table for 12 was set with crystal and silver that probably required insurance. Guests were already arriving, elegant couples who moved through Luca's home with the easy comfort of regular visitors. Luca made introductions. Marcus and Helen Ashford, collectors from Boston. The Chengs from San Francisco, museum board members. Antonio Russo, no relation to Elena, an art dealer from Rome. Each greeting came with appraising looks and careful questions about Eliza's background. "I'm a research consultant," she said, the lie smooth after 3 weeks of practice. "I help verify provenance and authentication for Mr. Moretti's acquisitions." "How fascinating," Helen Ashford said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "And how did you come to work for Luca?" "Professional recommendation," Luca interjected smoothly, his hand finding the small of Eliza's back. Eliza's expertise in archival research is unmatched. The possessive touch sent conflicting signals through Eliza's body: safety and danger, protection and ownership. Dinner was an exercise in performance art. 8 courses paired with wines Eliza couldn't drink, conversation that danced around obvious topics, laughter that sounded genuine but rang hollow. Everyone was playing a role, selling a version of themselves that existed only in this room. Eliza found herself seated between Antonio Russo and Marcus Ashford. Antonio was charming in that practiced European way, asking intelligent questions about her work and actually listening to her answers. Marcus was more direct. "So you're the new one," he said quietly during the 4th course. Eliza stiffened. "I'm sorry?" "Luca always has someone. Usually they don't last more than a few months." He took a sip of wine. "You seem different, though, smarter, more careful." "I'm his researcher, not his—" "I know what you are. I also know Luca Moretti doesn't bring women into his home for professional reasons only." Marcus smiled, the expression calculating. "Word of advice? Don't get attached. He'll use you up and move on the moment you stop being useful." The words hit like a slap. Before Eliza could respond, Luca's voice cut across the table. "Marcus, stop boring my guest with your cynicism. Eliza, tell Antonio about your findings on the Venetian manuscripts." The interruption was deliberate, protective even, but it didn't erase Marcus's warning. After dinner, guests migrated to the sitting room for coffee and brandy. Eliza excused herself to the powder room, needing a moment away from the performance. She stood at the marble sink, gripping the edge, breathing slowly. Her reflection looked like a stranger, polished, elegant, playing a part in someone else's story. The door opened. Helen Ashford entered, her smile sharp as glass. "You're sleeping with him, aren't you?" Not a question, an accusation. "Excuse me?" "Don't play innocent. I've known Luca for 10 years. I've seen him work. He collects beautiful things and keeps them until he gets bored." Helen reapplied her lipstick with precise strokes. "You seem sweet, almost genuine. It'll make it harder when he's done with you." "Mrs. Ashford." "Call me Helen, and take it from someone who knows. Get out while you still can. before you become too necessary to discard easily but not important enough to keep. She left Eliza alone with her reflection and her racing heart. When Eliza returned to the party, she found Luca deep in conversation with Antonio Russo. Their body language suggested business being conducted under the guise of social nicety. Marcus Ashford intercepted her. "Sorry if I was too blunt at dinner. Helen says I have no filter after wine." "It's fine." "No, it's not. Truth is, I'm protective of Luca. We've been friends a long time. I've seen people try to use him, hurt him, betray him." Marcus's expression softened fractionally. "But I've also seen the way he looks at you. Maybe you are different." The words stayed with Eliza through the rest of the evening, through final farewells and the cleanup orchestrated by invisible staff. When the last guest departed, Luca found her on the terrace where she'd escaped for air. "You survived," he said. "Barely. Your friends are intense." "They're not my friends. They're business associates who mistake proximity for intimacy." He joined her at the railing. "What did Marcus say to you?" "That you'll use me up and discard me." "He's wrong." "Is he? You brought me here through blackmail. You keep me under surveillance disguised as hospitality. You dress me up and parade me in front of criminals pretending to be collectors." Eliza turned to face him. "What am I to you, Luca? Really?" He was quiet for a long moment. "You're the most interesting person I've met in a decade. You're brilliant, stubborn, impossibly brave, and too proud to admit when you need help. You intrigue me." "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is. You just don't like what it implies." He moved closer. "I don't know what you are to me yet, Eliza. That's the truth. But I know I'm not ready to let you go when the year is up." "You don't have a choice. We had an agreement." "Agreements can be renegotiated. Not this one." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. "We'll see." Then he kissed her. It was soft at first, a question more than a demand. But when Eliza gasped in surprise, Luca deepened the kiss, his other hand sliding into her hair, tilting her head back to grant him better access. And God help her, Eliza kissed him back. It was wrong on every level. He was her employer, her jailer, the man who'd blackmailed her into this impossible situation. But his mouth was warm and insistent, his body solid against hers. And for one desperate moment, she let herself feel something other than fear and exhaustion. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "That was a mistake," Eliza whispered. "Yes," he agreed. "We'll probably make it again." Then he stepped back, his professional mask sliding into place. "Good night, Eliza. You did well tonight." He left her alone on the terrace, lips still tingling, mind screaming warnings her body had ignored. Eliza pressed her hand to her stomach where her daughter was growing, hidden and vulnerable. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the night. "I'm so sorry." But she couldn't say if she was apologizing for the kiss, for the situation, or for the fact that part of her, a reckless, desperate part she was trying hard to silence, had wanted Luca to kiss her again. The kiss changed everything and nothing. Luca didn't mention it the next morning when he found Eliza in the library, curled in a leather chair with a book on Renaissance art authentication. He simply set a cup of herbal tea beside her, caffeine-free, she noticed, and asked about her progress on the Venetian manuscript verification. Professional, distant, as if his mouth hadn't been on hers 12 hours ago. Eliza matched his tone, discussing provenance and carbon dating while her pulse hammered against her ribs. They were playing a game neither acknowledged, circling each other with careful words while the air between them crackled with unspoken want. It couldn't happen again. It absolutely could not happen again. 3 days later, it happened again. Eliza was working late in her office, cross-referencing auction records, when Luca appeared with dinner on a tray. "Elena said you skipped lunch." "I wasn't hungry." "You're eating for two. Hunger is mandatory." He set the tray down, soup, bread, fruit, all things her rebellious stomach could theoretically handle. "Take a break. I'm almost finished with the Rotterdam dealer's background. Just give me 20 more. Eliza. His hand covered hers on the keyboard. "Break. Now." The touch sent electricity up her arm. She pulled away too quickly, nearly knocking over her water glass. Luca caught it with reflexes that spoke of a dangerous past. "You're nervous around me," he observed, I'm working for you. Professional distance seems appropriate. Is that what we're calling it? He moved closer, crowding her space in a way that should have felt threatening but instead felt magnetic. Professional distance? Luca, I think about kissing you constantly. I thought you should know. The admission stole her breath. That's not helpful. No, but it's honest. His hand came up to brush a strand of hair from her face, the gesture achingly gentle. Tell me you don't think about it too. She should lie, should reinforce the boundaries that were already dissolving like sugar in rain. But exhaustion and pregnancy hormones and the loneliness she'd been ignoring for months made her reckless. I think about it, she whispered. This time when he kissed her, there was nothing tentative about it. His mouth claimed hers with fierce certainty, one hand tangling in her hair while the other spanned her waist, pulling her against him. Eliza made a sound that was half protest, half surrender, her fingers gripping his shirt for balance as the world tilted sideways. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. This is complicated, Eliza managed. Yes. You're my employer. Yes. I'm pregnant with another man's child. I'm aware. His thumb traced her lower lip. Does it matter? It should. But does it? The honest answer terrified her. I don't know. Over the following weeks, they fell into a pattern that defied every logical boundary Eliza tried to maintain. Stolen kisses in empty hallways, his hand finding hers under the dinner table, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. It was madness. It was also the first time in years Eliza had felt seen. Her pregnancy progressed into the second trimester. Her body began to change in ways she couldn't hide, a gentle swell to her abdomen, a fullness to her face. Luca noticed everything, adjusting her workload when she tired easily, ensuring her favorite foods appeared at meals, installing a ridiculous ergonomic chair in her office. You're being too nice, Eliza said one evening in December, watching him build a fire in her suite's fireplace. It's suspicious. I take care of what's mine. I'm not yours. He looked at her over his shoulder, gray eyes reflecting firelight. Aren't you? The question hung unanswered. Christmas approached. Elena decorated the house with tasteful elegance, while Eliza wrestled with morning sickness that had morphed into all-day nausea. She was 18 weeks along, visibly pregnant now in fitted clothing, though the loose sweaters she favored still provided some camouflage. Have you thought about what you'll do? Luca asked one night. They were in his private study, a room she'd been granted access to somewhere between the third kiss and the admission that she was falling for a man she barely understood. When the baby comes? I have 6 months to figure it out. That's not an answer. Eliza set down her tea. What do you want me to say? That I'm terrified? That I have no idea how I'm going to raise a child alone while rebuilding my entire life? That some days I can barely breathe from the weight of it all? I want you to let me help. You are helping. This arrangement, the salary, clearing Maya's debt. I mean after, when the year is up. He moved to sit beside her on the sofa. Stay, Eliza. Stay here where you're safe. Where the baby will be safe. As what? Your employee? Your mistress? Your charity project? As someone I care about deeply and don't want to lose. The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. Luca, this isn't real. We're not real. You blackmailed me into this arrangement. Everything that's happened since is just what? Stockholm Syndrome? Convenience? He caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. Does this feel convenient to you? His heart raced beneath her palm, belying his calm exterior. You don't even know me, Eliza whispered. Not really. You know the version of me that exists in this house, doing your research, wearing your clothes, playing a role. I know you take your coffee with too much cream and read when you can't sleep. I know you're stubborn as hell and too proud to ask for help, even when you're drowning. I know you love your sister despite what she did. I know you're terrified of being a mother and excited about it in equal measure. His hand came up to cup her face. I know the real you, Eliza. The woman you've been hiding from the world, and I want her to stay. Tears burned behind her eyes. I can't. When this year is up, I need to disappear, build a normal life for my daughter. She deserves better than this world you live in. What if I could give you both, safety and normalcy? That's not possible. Let me try. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Luca glanced at it, his expression darkening. I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway. Through the partially open door, Eliza heard fragments of conversation in Italian, sharp, clipped words that sounded like argument. When he returned, the softness had vanished from his face, replaced by the cold calculation of the man who commanded criminal empires. I have to leave town for a few days, business in New York. He was already moving, grabbing his jacket. Marco will stay on the property. Elena has my itinerary. If you need anything, I'll be fine. He stopped, turned back to her. In 3 strides, he crossed the room and kissed her, hard, possessive, almost desperate. Lock your door at night, he said against her mouth. Trust no one except Elena and Marco. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call this number. He pressed a card into her hand with a number written in his precise script. Luca, you're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Another kiss, briefer this time. I'll be back before you know it. Then he was gone, leaving Eliza alone with a racing heart and too many questions. The house felt different without Luca's presence. Emptier, colder. Eliza threw herself into work, finishing the authentication report on a supposed Rembrandt that was definitely a very good 19th century copy. She avoided Maya's increasingly frantic texts asking to meet. She counted down the days until Luca's return. On the 3rd night, everything went wrong. Eliza woke to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up in bed, heart hammering, trying to orient herself in the darkness. The bedside clock read 2:47 a.m. The house was silent, except for, there, another crash, this one closer. Someone was inside. Moving on instinct, Eliza grabbed her phone and locked herself in the bathroom. Her hands shook as she dialed the number Luca had given her. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Someone's in the house. Her whisper was barely audible. I heard glass breaking. I'm locked in my bathroom, but where's Marco? I don't know. Luca, I'm scared. Listen to me very carefully. Stay exactly where you are. Don't make a sound. I'm calling Marco now and sending backup. They'll be there in 10 minutes. 10 minutes is... A tremendous crash shook her suite, her bedroom door splintering. They're in my room, Eliza breathed. Luca's voice turned deadly calm. Is there a window in the bathroom? Yes, but I'm on the 2nd floor. Can you climb down? Eliza looked at the window. Below was the terrace roof, then a 20-foot drop to gardens. Pregnant and terrified, in pajamas, no shoes. I don't think... The bathroom door handle rattled. Eliza, climb out that window right now. I don't care how you get down, just get out of that house. She was already moving, shoving the window open, cold December air rushing in. The bathroom door shuddered under impact, someone kicking it, testing the lock. Eliza climbed onto the sink, maneuvering her pregnant body through the window with desperate efficiency. Her hands found the roof's edge just as the bathroom door exploded inward. She didn't look back. Eliza half climbed, half fell onto the terrace roof. The tiles were slick with frost. Behind her, she heard shouting, male voices, harsh and urgent. She scrambled to the roof's edge and looked down at the garden 20 feet below. No choice. She lowered herself over the edge, hung by her fingertips for one terrifying moment, then let go. She hit the ground hard, pain exploding through her ankle. Above, a figure appeared at the bathroom window, backlit, featureless, terrifying. Eliza ran. She crashed through the formal gardens, bare feet torn by gravel and thorns. Her only thought to get away. Behind her, she heard pursuit, footsteps, shouted commands. She veered toward the tree line, seeking the cover of darkness. A hand caught her arm. Eliza screamed, twisting, fighting. Ms. Ricci, it's Marco! She sagged in relief. Marco stood before her in tactical gear, flanked by 2 other armed men she'd never seen before. Are you hurt? My ankle. I jumped from the terrace. Her breath came in gasps. There were men in my room. I know, we've got them. His expression was grim. Come, we need to get you somewhere safe. He led her not back to the house, but to a vehicle hidden in the trees. A black SUV with bulletproof glass and an engine that purred like a predator. One of the men wrapped her in a blanket while Marco made rapid phone calls in Italian. Within minutes, they were moving. Eliza watched Belvedere disappear behind them, Her sanctuary transformed into a crime scene in one violent night. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house, Mr. Moretti's orders." Marco's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "He's flying back now. He'll meet us there." "Who were they? The men in my room?" Marco's expression darkened. "People who wanted to hurt Mr. Moretti by taking something he values." The implication settled over her like ice water. "They were there for me." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he cares about you, and his enemies know it." The safe house was a nondescript condo in a gated community 40 minutes from Belvedere. Efficient, anonymous, the kind of place designed to hide people who needed to disappear. Marco swept it for threats while Eliza sat on the generic sofa, wrapped in the blanket, trying to process what had just happened. Her ankle throbbed. Her feet bled. Her body ached from the fall. But the baby? She pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling for movement. At 18 weeks, the flutter of kicks was still inconsistent, but there, faint but present. The baby was moving. Relief made her dizzy. A doctor arrived within the hour, a woman in her 50s who introduced herself simply as Dr. Santos and asked no questions about why she was examining a pregnant woman at 4 a.m. in a safe house. "The baby's heartbeat is strong," Dr. Santos said after a thorough exam. "No signs of distress. Your ankle is sprained, not broken. You're going to be very sore tomorrow, but you and your daughter are fine." Daughter. The confirmation hit Eliza like a physical blow. "It's a girl? You didn't know? I'm sorry, I thought..." Dr. Santos smiled. "Yes. You're having a girl. Congratulations." After the doctor left, Eliza sat alone in the unfamiliar bedroom and cried. For relief. For fear. For the daughter she was bringing into a world far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Luca arrived as dawn broke. She heard the door open, heard Marco's greeting, heard his rapid questions in Italian before his footsteps thundered toward her room. He appeared in the doorway looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes wild with something that looked like fear. Eliza. She stood from the bed, and he crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her against him with enough force to steal her breath. His hands ran over her back, her arms, her face, checking for injuries with desperate thoroughness. "I'm okay," she said into his chest. "We're okay." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "You jumped from a 2nd-story window. You told me to climb down. I didn't mean..." He made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "You could have been killed." "But I wasn't. Your training worked. Marco got there in time." Marco should have prevented them from getting inside in the first place. His expression turned murderous. "Someone betrayed us. Someone told them when I'd be out of town which room was yours, when the guard rotation changed." "Who?" "I don't know yet. But I will." He cupped her face with both hands, his touch achingly gentle despite the violence in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have kept you safer. Should have anticipated..." "How could you anticipate someone breaking into your home to kidnap me?" "Because that's my world, Eliza. Threats and counter-threats, leverage and retaliation. I knew getting close to you would make you a target. I knew it, and I did it anyway because I'm selfish, and I wanted you, and I didn't care about the consequences." His words hung in the air, raw and honest and terrifying. "What do we do now?" Eliza asked quietly. "I'm taking you somewhere they can't find you, somewhere even my enemies don't know about." He pulled her close again. "And then I'm going to find every person responsible for tonight and make them regret being born." The cold promise in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, she felt safe for the first time since waking to breaking glass. "Dr. Santos said the baby's fine," Eliza said into his shoulder. "She said it's a girl." Luca went very still. "A girl?" "Yes." He pulled back to look at her, one hand moving to rest gently on her small bump. "You're having a daughter." Something shifted in his expression, softened and hardened simultaneously. When he looked at her again, his eyes held a fierce protectiveness that made her breath catch. "No one will ever hurt either of you again," he said. "I swear it." It wasn't a promise, it was a vow. They left the safe house an hour later in a convoy of 3 vehicles. Luca kept her close, his arm around her shoulders, his body positioned between her and the windows. They drove for hours, switching vehicles twice, until they reached a private airfield where a jet waited on the tarmac. "Where are we going?" Eliza asked as they climbed aboard. "North, to a property I own under corporate shell companies. It's remote, secure, and off every database my enemies have access to." He guided her to a leather seat. "You'll be safe there while I deal with this threat." "You're not staying?" "I can't. Not yet. But Marco and a full security team will be with you." He crouched before her, taking her hands. "I need you to trust me, Eliza. Can you do that?" She looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw the truth he'd been hiding, that he was just as scared as she was, that her safety mattered more to him than his pride would let him admit, that somewhere in the past 4 months, this arrangement had become something neither of them could control. "I trust you," she said. Relief washed over his features. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then her lips, soft and desperate and full of unspoken promises. The jet took off into a slate-gray December sky. Eliza watched the ground fall away, watched her old life shrink to toy-sized insignificance, and wondered if she would ever feel solid earth beneath her feet again. The property Luca owned turned out to be a compound in the mountains of Montana, isolated, fortified, beautiful in a stark winter way. A main house built from timber and stone, guest cottages scattered across the property, security measures disguised as rustic charm. Marco settled her into the main house and introduced her to the security team, 4 men and 2 women who treated her with professional courtesy and maintained a perimeter that made the compound feel less like a refuge and more like a very comfortable prison. Eliza spent her days reading, researching when she had internet access, and talking to her daughter. "Your father doesn't know you exist," she told her growing belly. "But there's a man who's willing to protect us both. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if I can trust him. I don't know if I should, but I think I'm falling in love with him, and that terrifies me more than the men who broke into our room." At night, she dreamed of breaking glass in Luca's hands and a future she couldn't quite imagine. He called every day, sometimes twice, asking about her health, the baby, if she needed anything, never discussing what he was doing or when he'd return. Each conversation was a lifeline and a reminder that their worlds existed in dangerous intersection. 3 weeks passed. Christmas came and went. Eliza woke on New Year's Eve to find Marco standing in her doorway with an expression she couldn't read. "Mr. Moretti is on his way," he said. "He'll be here tonight." Relief and anxiety warred in her chest. "Is it over? The threat?" "He'll explain when he arrives." Luca's helicopter touched down at sunset. Eliza watched from the window as he emerged, looking thinner and harder than when he'd left. He spoke briefly with Marco, then headed toward the main house with purposeful strides. She met him at the door. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, taking inventory, confirming presence, reassuring themselves that the other was real and whole. Then Luca pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. "It's over," he said into her hair. "The threat is eliminated. You're safe now." "What did you do?" "What I had to." He pulled back to look at her, his hand moving to her stomach, which had grown considerably in 3 weeks. "How is she?" "Active, healthy, apparently fond of kicking me at 3 in the morning." A smile ghosted across his face, the first genuine expression she'd seen since he arrived. "Can I feel?" Eliza took his hand and placed it where she'd last felt movement. They stood like that for several minutes, waiting, until finally the baby kicked against his palm. Luca's expression transformed into wonder. "She's real. Very real. And getting more real every day." He sank to his knees before her, pressing his forehead against her belly with a reverence that made her throat tight. "I'm sorry," he whispered, to her or the baby. Eliza wasn't sure. "I'm sorry I brought danger to your door. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. I'm sorry for all of it." Eliza's hands found his hair, her fingers threading through the dark strands. "You saved us. You kept us safe. That's what matters." He looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. "I love you, Eliza. I know I have no right to. I know this started wrong and the circumstances are impossible and you have every reason not to believe me. But I love you, both of you. And I need you to know that before you make your decision." Her heart stopped. "What decision?" "Whether to stay or go. Your year is almost up. Another month and you're free to leave, take your money, start over somewhere I can't find you. He stood, keeping his hand on her stomach. Or you can stay. Build a life here with me. Let me be a father to your daughter. Let me prove that I can give you both safety and freedom. Luca, I know what I'm asking. I know how it sounds. But I'm offering you a real choice this time, not coercion dressed up as opportunity. Stay because you want to, or leave because you need to. Either way, you and the baby will have resources, protection, everything you need, but please, his voice broke, please consider staying. Eliza looked at the man kneeling before her, offering his heart with trembling hands. The man who'd blackmailed her into his world and then moved heaven and earth to keep her safe in it. The man who'd committed crimes she didn't want to know about, but who'd just spent 3 weeks eliminating threats so she could sleep without fear. The man she'd somehow fallen in love with despite every logical reason not to. I need time, she whispered. You have it. All the time you need. That night, they sat by the fire while snow fell outside and Eliza tried to imagine 2 futures, one where she ran and one where she stayed. Both terrified her, but only one made her heart race with something that might have been hope. The weeks that followed felt suspended outside of time. Luca stayed at the Montana compound, working remotely from a secure office while Eliza navigated the final months of her pregnancy. They existed in careful balance, not quite domestic, not quite forbidden, something entirely their own. He brought her breakfast in bed when morning sickness returned with a vengeance in her 3rd trimester. She fell asleep on the sofa during research sessions and woke to find herself covered with blankets, his laptop closed, his hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. They didn't talk about her decision. The unspoken agreement was that she would choose when she was ready, and he would accept whatever she decided. But the clock was ticking. Her contracted year would end in 3 weeks, and Eliza still didn't know if she had the courage to stay or the strength to leave. You're thinking too hard again, Luca said one evening in late January. They were in the main house's library, him reviewing shipping manifests while she pretended to read a novel she'd restarted 4 times. I'm 7 months pregnant. Thinking is all I'm capable of. You're capable of considerably more. He set aside his work. Talk to me, Eliza. What's going on in that brilliant, complicated head of yours? She closed her book. I'm trying to figure out what kind of mother I want to be, what kind of life I want to give her. And I keep coming back to the fact that I fell in love with a criminal, that the father of my child, biologically speaking, doesn't even know she exists, that I'm about to make a choice that will define her entire childhood, and I have no idea which option is right. Luca moved to sit beside her on the sofa, close enough that she could feel his warmth. What does your gut tell you? That I'm terrified either way. If I leave, I'm walking away from security and protection, and she faltered. And you. If I stay, I'm accepting a life I never imagined, raising my daughter in a world where people break into houses and threaten violence and make people disappear. I would never let that world touch her. Or you. You can't promise that. You tried to keep me safe before, and I still ended up jumping from a 2nd-story window. The reminder made him flinch. That won't happen again. How do you know? Because I've restructured everything. My business operations, my security protocols, my entire approach to risk management. I've eliminated anyone who posed a threat and severed ties with partnerships that created vulnerabilities. His hand found hers. I can't make the world perfectly safe. No one can. But I can give you and your daughter the closest thing to it that exists. At what cost? To you? To your business? To nothing that matters more than you. He cupped her face, his gray eyes intense. Don't you understand yet? You changed everything. You made me want to be someone worth staying for. Eliza's breath caught. Luca. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen and froze. Maya. She hadn't spoken to her sister in 4 months, hadn't responded to texts or voicemails, had blocked her attempts at contact through sheer force of will. But seeing the name now, Eliza felt the old pull of family obligation. Don't answer it, Luca said quietly. She's my sister. She's the reason you're in this situation. I know, but she's still... Eliza accepted the call before she could second guess. Hello? Maya's voice came through ragged with tears. Liza, thank God. Please don't hang up, please. What do you want, Maya? I need to see you. I need to explain, to apologize properly. I've been sober for 3 months, going to meetings, working with a therapist. I'm trying to fix myself, but I can't do it without making amends to you. Eliza's grip tightened on the phone. Part of her wanted to hang up to maintain the wall she'd built between them. But another part, the part that remembered childhood secrets and shared grief when their parents died, couldn't quite sever the cord. Where are you? Still in the city. I can come to you wherever you are. Just tell me when and where. Eliza looked at Luca, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I need to think about it. I'll call you back. She hung up before Maya could argue. You're not actually considering seeing her, Luca said. It wasn't a question. She's my sister. She sold you to pay gambling debts. I know what she did, but people change. People deserve second chances. Not everyone. His voice had gone cold. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Is that what you believe? That one mistake defines someone forever? When that mistake puts someone I love in danger, yes. The admission hung between them. Love spoken so casually it almost sounded incidental. But Eliza saw the truth in his eyes, the vulnerability he was trying to hide behind anger. What if I need to forgive her? Eliza asked quietly. Not for Maya's sake, but for mine? What if I can't move forward while carrying all this resentment? Luca was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Then you should see her. But not alone, and not anywhere that compromises your security. You don't trust her. I don't trust anyone when it comes to your safety. He stood, pacing to the window. I'll arrange a meeting. Neutral location, controlled environment, full security presence. If she's genuine about making amends, she'll agree to the terms. 2 days later, Eliza found herself in a private room at an upscale hotel in Helena, waiting for Maya to arrive. Marco stood outside the door, 2 more security personnel stationed at strategic points. Luca had wanted to be present, but Eliza had insisted on privacy. Some conversations needed to happen without an audience. When Maya walked in, Eliza barely recognized her. Her sister had lost weight, her face gaunt where it had once been full. Her clothes hung loose, and her eyes carried a haunted quality that spoke of hard-won sobriety and harder truths. She stopped just inside the door, taking in Eliza's heavily pregnant state with wide eyes. Oh my God, Maya whispered. You're 7 months along, yes. Does Daniel know? No, and he never will. Eliza gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. You said you wanted to talk. Maya sat, her hands twisting in her lap. I've been practicing what to say for weeks, but now that you're here, I don't know where to start. Start with the truth. All of it. So Maya talked. She explained how the gambling had started. Innocent fun that spiraled into compulsion, small losses that became catastrophic debt. She described the moment the collection agents had cornered her, the threats they'd made, the desperation that had driven her to accept Luca's offer. I didn't know what he really wanted, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. I swear, Liza, he just said he needed to meet you, that if I brought you to the club, he'd clear my debt. I thought it was weird, but I was so scared, and I told myself it was just a meeting, that you could handle yourself. You told yourself whatever you needed to justify using me as currency, Eliza interrupted. Don't rewrite history to make yourself feel better. Maya flinched. You're right, I did. I was selfish and cowardly, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. She looked at Eliza's belly. Is that why you're with him? Because of the baby? Did he? The baby isn't his. She's Daniel's, a parting gift from a marriage I spent 3 years trying to save. Eliza's hand moved protectively to her stomach. And I'm not with Luca. The situation is complicated. But you're living with him, under his protection. Under his control initially. It's evolved into something else. Something else like what? Eliza hesitated, unsure how to explain a relationship that defied easy categorization. Something I'm still trying to understand. Maya leaned forward. Liza, listen to me. I know I have no right to give you advice, but Luca Moretti is dangerous, really dangerous. The things I've heard about what he does, the people he's hurt. You think I don't know what he is? Eliza's voice turned sharp. You delivered me to him, Maya. You put me in this situation. So don't sit there now and pretend you're concerned about my welfare. I am concerned. You're my sister. I made a terrible mistake, but that doesn't mean I stopped caring about you. You have a funny way of showing it. The words hit like a slap. Maya dissolved into sobs, her thin frame shaking with the force of them. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I can't take it back. I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I needed you to know that I'm trying to be better, that I'm getting help, that I hate myself for what I did to you. Eliza watched her sister cry and felt a complicated mix of anger and pity and exhausted love. Maya had always been the reckless one, the sister who leaped without looking and expected Eliza to catch her, but there was genuine remorse in her tears, real effort in her sobriety. I don't forgive you, Eliza said quietly. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I'm willing to consider it, if you prove that you've actually changed. Maya looked up, hope flickering in her red-rimmed eyes. How? What do I need to do? Stay sober, keep going to your meetings, build a life that doesn't revolve around self-destruction and using other people to clean up your messes. Eliza stood, awkward with her pregnant bulk. And give me time. Real time, not just weeks or months. Time to see if this version of you is genuine or just another performance. Okay. Maya stood too. Can I hug you? Eliza hesitated, then nodded. Maya's arms came around her carefully, mindful of the baby between them. She smelled different. No perfume, no alcohol, just soap and something that might have been fear or hope. I love you, Maya whispered. I never stopped loving you, even when I was hurting you. I know. That's what makes it so complicated. When Eliza returned to the compound that evening, she found Luca in his office, tension radiating from every line of his body. How did it go? He asked without preamble. She's sober, apologetic, probably genuine, but I don't trust it yet. Smart. He stood, moving to pour them both water from the bar, a routine they'd developed since she couldn't drink alcohol. What did you tell her? That I need time before I can forgive her, that she needs to prove she's changed. Eliza accepted the glass. You were right about one thing. She warned me about you, said you were dangerous. A dark smile curved his mouth. She's not wrong. I know. That's what makes this so impossible. She set down the glass. I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about my decision. Luca went very still. And? I'm terrified of staying, terrified of what it means for my daughter to grow up in your world. But I'm also terrified of leaving because somewhere in the past 8 months, this stopped being about the arrangement and became about… She faltered. About what? About the fact that I love you. The admission escaped in a rush. I love you, and I hate that I do because it complicates everything. You blackmailed me, Luca. You manipulated me into your life. I should despise you. But you don't. But I don't. She moved closer to him. And I need to know, if I stay, if I choose this, can you promise me that you'll keep trying to be the man you've shown me these past few months? Not the criminal who operates in shadows, but the person who builds fires and brings me tea and talks to my daughter like she's already here? Luca's hands framed her face with devastating gentleness. I can't promise I'll ever be completely legitimate. My business exists in gray areas that decent people don't acknowledge. But I can promise that I'll protect you both with everything I have, that I'll build you a life where you can have independence and safety, that I'll be a father to your daughter if you'll let me, and I'll never give either of you a reason to fear me. That's not the same as being safe. No, but it's the truth, and I won't lie to you about what staying means. Eliza looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw her future reflected there. Complicated, dangerous, shot through with love she'd never expected to find. I need one more thing from you, she said. Anything. I need you to let me go. Confusion flickered across his face. What? Not forever, just, I need to know that if I stay, it's because I'm choosing you, not because I'm trapped by circumstances you manufactured. So I need you to release me from the arrangement. Clear Maya's debt, give me the money you promised, and let me walk away if I want to. And if you don't come back, then you'll know I made a choice free of coercion. Luca was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped back, creating physical distance that felt like a chasm. All right, he said quietly. The money will be in your account by morning. Maya's debt is already cleared. I did that months ago. You're free to leave whenever you want. Relief and terror washed over Eliza in equal measure. Just like that? Just like that. Though I reserve the right to try to convince you to stay. How? He moved closer again, his hand coming to rest on her swollen belly where their daughter, not biologically his, but his in every way that mattered, was currently performing acrobatics against her rib cage. By being someone worth staying for, he said simply. That night, Eliza lay awake in the guest room she'd occupied for weeks, thinking about freedom and fear and the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. In the morning, she checked her bank account and found $200,000 waiting. Her year was complete. Her sister's debt was cleared. She was free to go. She stayed. Not because she had to, but because leaving felt like abandoning the only place she'd ever felt truly seen. February arrived with brutal cold and news that changed everything. Eliza was in the library sorting through research files she'd accumulated over the months when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her accept the call. Ms. Ricci, an unfamiliar female voice. This is Dr. Chen from St. Catherine's Hospital. Your name is listed as an emergency contact for Daniel Ricci. Liza's blood ran cold. What happened? Mr. Ricci was involved in a severe car accident 3 days ago. He's been in a coma since admission. His fiancée provided your contact information. She thought you should know. Is he going to survive? We're hopeful, but the next 48 hours are critical. If you'd like to visit, no, thank you for calling, but no. Eliza hung up, her hands shaking. Luca found her 20 minutes later, still sitting in the same position, phone clutched in her white-knuckled grip. What happened? He asked, crouching before her. She told him. About Daniel, the accident, the coma, about the fact that the father of her child might die without ever knowing he had a daughter. Do you want to go to him? Luca asked quietly. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should, that he deserves to know about the baby before... She couldn't finish the sentence. And the other part? The other part remembers that he chose to leave, that he built a new life with someone else while I was falling apart, that he gave up any right to our daughter when he destroyed our marriage. Luca took her hands in his. This isn't about what he deserves. It's about what you need. If you need closure, if you need to tell him, I'll take you there right now. And if I don't, then we stay here, and you let the past stay in the past where it belongs. Eliza looked at this man kneeling before her, the criminal who'd blackmailed her, the protector who'd moved mountains to keep her safe, the partner who'd given her freedom when it would have been easier to keep her trapped. I don't need closure from Daniel, she said slowly. I already have everything I need. The relief in Luca's expression was unmistakable. 3 days later, Eliza woke to wetness between her legs and a cramping pain that took her breath away. It was too early. She was only 32 weeks. The baby wasn't due for another 8 weeks. Luca! Her voice came out strangled with panic. He appeared in seconds, taking in the situation with rapid assessment. How long have you been contracting? I don't know. I just woke up. Something's wrong. Nothing is wrong. We're going to the hospital right now. He was already moving, grabbing her emergency bag, calling for Marco, his voice calm despite the fear Eliza could see in his eyes. The helicopter ride to the nearest hospital with a NICU was the longest 40 minutes of Eliza's life. Luca held her hand the entire time, talking her through contractions, his presence the only solid thing in a world that had started spinning too fast. At the hospital, everything became a blur of monitors and urgent voices and pain that eclipsed rational thought. The baby was in distress. They needed to do an emergency C-section. Eliza needed to sign forms. I'm scared, she whispered to Luca as they prepped her for surgery. I know, but you're the strongest person I've ever met. You jumped from a second-story window to protect her. You can do this too. Will you stay during the surgery? Try to make me leave. The surgery was faster than she expected. One moment she was being wheeled into the OR, and the next, a thin, angry cry filled the room. It's a girl, someone said unnecessarily. Eliza caught a glimpse of impossibly tiny limbs and a shock of dark hair before they whisked the baby away to assess her breathing and temperature. Is she okay? Eliza asked through tears. She's small but strong, the doctor said. 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Her lungs are underdeveloped, so she'll need NICU support, but her vitals are good. You did great, Mom. In the recovery room, Luca appeared with a photograph on his phone, a tiny infant in an incubator, wires and tubes making her look impossibly fragile. She's beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Absolutely perfect. Have you seen her in person? They let me watch through the glass while they stabilized her. She has your nose. And your stubborn determination. She yanked out her feeding tube twice already. Despite everything, Eliza laughed, then cried, then laughed again through her tears. I haven't named her yet, she said. I was waiting until she was here, but now I can't think straight. You have time. She's not going anywhere for a few weeks. But Eliza knew, looking at the photograph of her impossibly small daughter, exactly what her name should be. Sophia, she said. It means wisdom. I want her to be wise enough to avoid her mother's mistakes, and brave enough to make her own. Luca's hand found hers. Sophia, it's perfect. They sat like that for a long time, watching the photograph as if they could will the baby to grow stronger through sheer force of love. The NICU became Eliza's world for the next 6 weeks. She was there every day, sitting beside Sophia's incubator, talking to her daughter through the plastic barrier, willing her to thrive. Luca came when he could, working remotely from the hospital, his presence a constant source of support. Sophia grew slowly but steadily. 4 pounds became 5, then 6. The breathing tube came out, replaced by a nasal cannula, then nothing at all. Her tiny fingers learned to grip Eliza's thumb. Her eyes, gray like Luca's, though Eliza knew it was coincidence, began to focus and track movement. And through it all, Luca was there. He learned to change diapers smaller than his palm. He read medical charts with the same intensity he applied to provenance research. He held Sophia when the nurses allowed it, his large hands cradling her fragile body with impossible gentleness. She knows you, Eliza said one evening, watching him talk to Sophia in Italian, soft words about growing strong and breaking hearts and becoming someone magnificent. Does she? Look at how she watches you. She knows your voice. Good. He pressed a kiss to Sophia's tiny forehead. I want her to know that I'll always be here, that she'll never have to wonder if someone will catch her when she falls. Eliza's throat tightened. Luca, I know she's not mine biologically. I know Daniel is her father by blood. But if you'll let me... He looked up at Eliza, his eyes full of hope and fear. I'd like to be her father in every way that actually matters. Even though it means raising another man's child. She's your child, that's all I need to know. The simple declaration undid something in Eliza's chest. The last wall she'd been maintaining, the final barrier between protecting herself and choosing love. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you can be her father, if you're sure that's what you want. I've never been more sure of anything. When Sophia was finally cleared to leave the NICU 6 weeks later, weighing a healthy 6 pounds and breathing perfectly on her own, Eliza felt like she could breathe too for the first time since the emergency surgery. They brought her home to the Montana compound in March, when the snow was beginning to melt and the world was slowly awakening from winter. Elena had prepared a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. Soft colors, expensive furniture, every safety device money could buy. That first night, Eliza sat in the rocking chair with Sophia asleep on her chest, listening to her daughter's tiny snores, and thought about the impossible path that had led them here. A year ago, she'd been signing divorce papers and discovering an unexpected pregnancy. Now, she was living with a man who'd entered her life through blackmail and stayed through love, raising a daughter with someone who wasn't her biological father, but who'd already proven himself in every way that mattered. It was messy and complicated, and nothing like the life she'd imagined. It was also perfect. Luca appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. How's she doing? Sleeping, finally. I think she missed her incubator. He set down the cups and moved behind the rocking chair, his hands coming to rest on Eliza's shoulders. And how are you doing? Terrified, exhausted, completely in love. She tilted her head back to look at him. Thank you for everything, for protecting us, for being here, for becoming someone I could choose instead of someone I was trapped with. You're not trapped anymore. You could still leave. I know. That's why I'm staying. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then moved to sit in the second chair Elena had added, a matching rocker, positioned so they could share these late-night moments. "I've been thinking," Luca said quietly, "about the future, about what kind of life I want to give you both. And? And I think it's time I started making some changes. Real changes, not just surface adjustments." Eliza's heart skipped. "What kind of changes?" "The kind that involve gradually transitioning my operations into legitimate business. It won't happen overnight. I have commitments, partnerships that can't be severed instantly. But over the next few years, I want to build something Sophia can be proud of. Something that doesn't require lies or danger or living in compound fortresses." "Is that even possible? Can you just walk away from that world?" "Not walk away. Transform it. I have resources, contacts, expertise in authentication and international trade. There's no reason those skills can't be applied legally." Eliza studied his face in the dim light. "This is because of her, isn't it? Because you want to be the kind of father she can look up to." "It's because of both of you, because I want to be someone worthy of the family you've given me." Sophia stirred in Eliza's arms, making the small mewling sounds that preceded full-scale crying. Luca stood immediately, reaching for his daughter with practiced ease. "My turn," he said, settling Sophia against his chest. She quieted instantly, her tiny hand fisting in his shirt. Eliza watched them, the powerful man and the fragile baby, and felt her heart expand to accommodate more love than she'd thought possible. This was her family, chosen, complicated, forged in crisis, and sealed with trust. This was home. Outside, winter finally released its grip on the Montana mountains. Inside, a man who'd built empires in shadows learned to change diapers at 3 a.m., and a woman who'd thought her story ended with divorce papers discovered it was only the beginning. Spring arrived in Montana with the tentative hope of new beginnings. Sophia thrived in those early months, growing from a fragile preemie into a sturdy baby with her mother's dark hair and a smile that could light entire rooms. She learned to track movement with those startling gray eyes, to grip fingers with surprising strength, to make sounds that weren't quite words but felt like conversation. And she adored Luca. Eliza watched the bond form between them with a mixture of wonder and relief. Every morning, Luca was the first to get Sophia from her crib, talking to her in Italian while he changed her diaper. Every evening, he walked the nursery with her against his shoulder, humming songs Eliza suspected he'd learned from his own childhood. He was patient with her fussiness, delighted by her milestones, completely undone by her laughter. "She has you wrapped around her tiny finger," Eliza said one April morning, finding him on the floor doing tummy time with Sophia, making ridiculous faces to coax her into lifting her head. "Completely," he agreed without shame, "and I wouldn't have it any other way." Life settled into rhythms that felt almost normal. Luca worked from the compound, gradually restructuring his business operations as promised. Eliza discovered she could do freelance authentication work remotely, legitimate clients, legal projects, using her expertise without the moral compromise that had defined her first year with Luca. But underneath the domestic tranquility, Eliza felt the pull of something unfinished. "I need to go back," she said one evening in May. They were on the terrace, Sophia asleep in her bassinet between them, the mountain air soft with the promise of summer. Luca looked up from his laptop. "Back where?" "To the city. To face the life I left behind." She'd been thinking about it for weeks, the loose threads that needed tying. "I need closure with Daniel. I need to see Maya and determine if her sobriety is real. I need to stop hiding." "You're not hiding. You're healing." "I'm hiding," Eliza insisted. "And while this place is beautiful and I'm grateful for the safety it's provided, Sophia can't grow up in a fortress. She needs to know the real world, not just the protected bubble we've created." Luca was quiet for a long moment. "You want to leave Montana." "I want to build a life that exists outside of crisis mode, where we're not constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for the next threat." She reached for his hand. "You said you were transitioning your business. Maybe it's time we transitioned our lives, too." "Where would we go?" "I don't know. Somewhere we can be a normal family. Somewhere Sophia can go to parks and schools and have friends without security details shadowing her every move." "Normal families don't have fathers with my history." "Then we figure out what our version of normal looks like." Eliza squeezed his hand. "I'm not asking you to become someone you're not. I'm asking you to help me create a life where Sophia doesn't have to pay for choices we made before she existed. Luca studied her face in the fading light. You're serious about this? Completely. And I think you are too, or you wouldn't have spent the past 4 months dismantling your criminal operations. A smile ghosted across his face. You're too perceptive for your own good. It's why you hired me? It's one of many reasons. He stood, moving to check on Sophia, his hand gentle on her tiny back. All right, we'll go back, but on our terms, with proper security in place, and the moment anything feels unsafe, we reassess. I know. Eliza joined him at the bassinet. Thank you for not fighting me on this. I learned months ago that fighting you is pointless. You're going to do what you believe is right, regardless of my objections. His arm came around her waist. I'm just trying to keep up. They returned to the city in June, not to Belvedere, but to a different property. A townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, expensive but not ostentatious, with a small garden in proximity to parks. Marco insisted on a security system that could repel a small army, but otherwise the house felt remarkably normal. Normal enough that Eliza could almost forget the circumstances that had brought them here. Her first task was facing Daniel. He'd recovered from the coma. His fiancée had informed Eliza through a stiff email, though he had significant memory loss from the accident. He was in rehabilitation, learning to walk again, rebuilding his life piece by piece, and he didn't remember the affair that had ended their marriage. Are you sure about this? Luca asked. The morning Eliza prepared to visit the rehabilitation center. Sophia was napping in her nursery, giving them a rare moment of quiet. No, but I need to do it anyway. Eliza adjusted her blouse, suddenly self-conscious. He deserves to know he has a daughter, even if he doesn't remember destroying our marriage. He gave up that right when he cheated on you. Maybe. But Sophia might want to know him someday. I need to at least give her that option. Luca's expression was carefully neutral. And if he wants to be involved? If he decides fatherhood appeals to him now that he's facing his own mortality? Then we deal with it. Together. She moved into his arms, needing the solid reality of him. You're her father in every way that matters, Luca. Nothing Daniel says or does will change that. I hope you're right. The rehabilitation center was modern and expensive, the kind of place where wealthy people went to recover from life-altering injuries. Eliza found Daniel in the physical therapy room, working with a therapist on walking between parallel bars. He looked thinner than she remembered, his movements careful and deliberate, but his face lit up when he saw her. Eliza, they told me you might come, but I didn't believe it. He maneuvered himself to a wheelchair with the therapist's help. God, it's good to see you. Hi, Daniel. The words felt strange in her mouth. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, which isn't far from the truth. He gestured to a seating area. Can we talk? I know things between us are complicated, but I'm trying to piece together what happened before the accident. They sat. Eliza's hands twisted in her lap, her rehearsed speech evaporating in the face of his earnest confusion. What do you remember? She asked. We were married. Happy, I thought. Then nothing for about 2 years, and suddenly I'm waking up in a hospital being told I'm engaged to someone else. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Jennifer, my fiancée, she tries to explain, but I can't reconcile the man she describes with who I thought I was. People change, Eliza said quietly. Sometimes not for the better. Did I hurt you before the accident? The direct question deserved an honest answer. Yes, you had an affair with a paralegal at your firm. I found out, and we divorced about 18 months ago. Daniel's face crumpled. God, Eliza, I'm so sorry, even if I don't remember it. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, but I didn't come here for an apology. Then why did you come? Eliza pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. Sophia at 4 months, all chubby cheeks and bright eyes, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Because you have a daughter. Her name is Sophia. She was born 3 months premature in February. She's healthy now, thriving, and she deserves to know her biological father exists. The silence that followed felt endless. Daniel stared at the photo, his expression cycling through shock, disbelief, wonder. She's mine? He whispered. Yes, I found out I was pregnant the day I signed our divorce papers. I chose not to tell you because you'd already moved on with Jennifer. But you should have told me. I had a right to know. You gave up your rights when you destroyed our marriage. But Sophia didn't make that choice, and she might want to know you someday. That's why I'm here. Not for you, but for her. Daniel looked up from the photo, tears streaming down his face. Can I meet her, please? I know I don't deserve it, but not yet. You're still recovering, still trying to rebuild your own life. When you're ready, when you've processed all of this, we can arrange supervised visits. But I need you to understand something. Eliza leaned forward. I'm with someone else now, someone who's been a father to Sophia since before she was born. Someone who loves her unconditionally. You can be part of her life, but you don't get to disrupt it. Who is he? This man who's raising my daughter? That's not your concern right now. Focus on getting better. When you're ready, we'll talk about what limited involvement looks like. She stood to leave, but Daniel's voice stopped her. Eliza, for what it's worth, I'm glad you found someone who treats you better than I did. Even if I can't remember being that person, I'm sorry I was. The apology felt genuine, and Eliza found she could accept it without the bitterness that had defined her for so long. Thank you. Take care of yourself, Daniel. Outside, she found Luca waiting in the car, Sophia strapped into her carrier in the back seat. He searched her face as she climbed in. How did it go? Better than expected. Worse than I hoped. She reached back to brush Sophia's soft cheek. He wants to meet her eventually. I said we'd discuss supervised visits when he's recovered. And you're comfortable with that? I don't know, but it feels like the right thing to do. She turned to face him. You're still her father, Luca. Meeting Daniel doesn't change that. I know, but it complicates things. Everything about us is complicated. We're just adding one more layer. He pulled out into traffic, his free hand finding hers. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. That couldn't have been easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. You taught me that. The second piece of unfinished business was Maya. Eliza had been texting with her sister sporadically over the past months, surface-level conversations that avoided anything substantial. But now, back in the city, avoidance felt cowardly. They met at a coffee shop in Maya's neighborhood, neutral territory with enough people around to prevent either of them from making a scene. Maya arrived early, nursing a tea, her leg bouncing with nervous energy. Thanks for coming, she said when Eliza slid into the booth across from her. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Eliza ordered coffee from the hovering waitress. But I decided it was time we had a real conversation. About? About whether I can actually forgive you. Whether you've actually changed. Whether there's any possibility of rebuilding what you destroyed. Maya's hands tightened around her mug. I've been sober for 8 months. I'm working full-time at a nonprofit that helps people with gambling addictions. I haven't placed a bet or played a hand of cards since before Christmas. That's good. I'm proud of you for that. But sobriety doesn't erase what you did. You sold me to pay your debts, Maya. You put me in an incredibly dangerous situation because you couldn't face the consequences of your own choices. I know. Believe me, I know. I think about it every single day. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I've tried 100 times to figure out how to make it up to you, but there's nothing big enough. Nothing that balances the scales. You're right, there isn't. Eliza took a sip of her coffee, buying time to organize her thoughts. But I've realized something over the past few months. Holding on to this anger, this resentment, it's not hurting you, it's hurting me. It's taking up space in my heart that I'd rather fill with better things. Hope flickered in Maya's expression. Does that mean? It means I'm willing to try. Not to forget what you did, but to move past it. To rebuild our relationship on new terms where you prove through actions, not promises, that you've actually changed. I'll do whatever it takes, anything you need. I need you to meet my daughter. Maya's breath caught. You have a daughter? Eliza pulled out her phone and showed the same photo she'd shown Daniel, Sophia with her stuffed rabbit, all innocence and potential. Her name is Sophia. She's 5 months old, and she's going to need an aunt who shows her that people can make mistakes and still become better versions of themselves. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. She's beautiful. She looks like you. She looks like herself. stubborn and determined and absolutely perfect. Eliza set down her phone. I want you to be part of her life, Maya. But you need to understand that if you relapse, if you make choices that put her at risk, I will cut you out completely. Sophia's safety comes before our sisterhood. I understand. I swear, Liza, I won't let you down. We'll see. Actions, not promises, remember? They talked for another hour about Maya's job, her therapy, the slow process of rebuilding her life, about Eliza's complicated relationship with Luca, the domesticity they'd created, the ways love could grow in the strangest soil, about Sophia's milestones and Maya's hope to one day have children of her own. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, but it was a beginning. When they parted, Maya hugged her with desperate gratitude. Thank you for giving me another chance. Don't waste it, Eliza said. Over the following months, life found its rhythm. Luca gradually dismantled his criminal operations, transitioning into legitimate art authentication and international trade consulting. It wasn't seamless. There were partnerships to dissolve carefully, debts to settle, enemies to placate. But slowly, methodically, he built something new, something Sophia could be proud of. Daniel recovered enough to request supervised visits. The first few were awkward. A stranger holding his daughter, trying to connect across a chasm of lost time and broken trust. But he was patient, showing up consistently, asking thoughtful questions, respecting the boundaries Eliza and Luca established. He's not a bad man, Eliza said one evening after Daniel's fourth visit. He made terrible choices, but he's trying to be better. Does that change how you feel about him? Luca asked. They were giving Sophia a bath, a nightly ritual they'd developed, splashing water and baby giggles filling the bathroom. No, I don't love him. I'm not sure I ever really did. I loved the idea of him, the life we were supposed to build. But the actual person? She shook her head. That ship sailed a long time ago. Good. Luca lifted Sophia from the tub, wrapping her in a hooded towel that made her look like a tiny pink rabbit. Because I'm not interested in sharing you. Possessive much? Completely. You knew this about me. Eliza laughed, following him to the nursery. Yes, I did. Among other things. Such as? Such as the fact that you're actually a giant marshmallow, where our daughter is concerned, and that you sing off-key when you think no one is listening, and that you cry at children's movies. That was one time, and the ending of that animated film was manipulative. You sobbed. I had something in my eye. For 20 minutes? He shot her a look over his shoulder while wrestling Sophia into pajamas. You're enjoying this. Immensely. She moved to help, their hands working in practiced tandem. I enjoy everything about this life we're building, even the messy parts. After Sophia was asleep, they retreated to their bedroom, a space that had evolved from separate rooms to tentative sharing to comfortable intimacy. Luca pulled Eliza against him, his chin resting on top of her head. I've been thinking, he said. Dangerous habit. I want to marry you. Eliza's heart stopped. She pulled back to look at him. What? I want to marry you, properly. Not because of arrangements or blackmail or pregnancy, but because I love you, and I want to build a life with you that's legally recognized and socially legitimate. Luca, we've barely been together a year. We've been together since the moment you walked into that club. Everything else was just us figuring out what that meant. His hands framed her face. I know my past isn't something I can erase. I know there will always be people who remember what I was, but I want to be the man you choose to build a future with, officially. Are you proposing without a ring? I'm proposing the concept. The ring comes when you say yes. Eliza laughed through sudden tears. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? It's a... Let me think about it. Marriage is a big step. We're raising a child together. We live in the same house. We share a bed and a life and everything that matters. How is marriage a bigger step than what we're already doing? Because marriage means I'm choosing this forever. Not for a year, not until circumstances change, but permanently. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his racing heart. And that terrifies me. Good. It should. Forever is terrifying. But it's also the only amount of time I'm interested in when it comes to you. Let me think about it, she repeated. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Autumn arrived with startling beauty. painting Montana in golds and reds. They'd returned to the compound for a visit, needing the peace of mountains and the distance from city complications. Sophia was 8 months old now, crawling with determined speed, pulling herself up on furniture, saying sounds that were almost words. She was fascinated by everything: leaves, water, the way light moved across floors. "She's going to be walking soon," Elena observed, watching Sophia cruise along the sofa. "And then you'll never catch her." "That's what I'm afraid of," Eliza said, scooping up her daughter before she could topple backward. "She has no concept of danger. She has her mother's fearlessness. Her mother jumped from a second-story window while pregnant. Let's hope she has better judgment." They were interrupted by Marco, his expression serious. "Mr. Moretti, you have visitors. They're waiting in the main office." Luca's posture changed instantly, shoulders back, face hardening into the mask Eliza recognized from his old life. "Who?" "Federal agents. They say it's urgent." Ice flooded Eliza's veins. "What do they want?" "I don't know. But they have a warrant to search the property." Marco's voice was carefully neutral. "They also mentioned they'd like to speak with Ms. Ricci." The world tilted. Eliza clutched Sophia tighter. "Why would they want to talk to me?" "Because you worked for me," Luca said, his voice deadly calm. "Because you did research that could be construed as aiding illegal operations." He turned to Marco. "Take Eliza and Sophia to the safe room. Now." "No." Eliza's voice was stronger than she felt. "I'm not hiding. If they want to talk to me, I'll talk to them." "Eliza, you promised me we were building a legitimate life. If that's true, then I have nothing to hide." She handed Sophia to Elena. "Take her. Keep her safe." Elena disappeared with the baby while Eliza followed Luca to the main office, her heart hammering against her ribs. 3 federal agents waited, 2 men and a woman, all carrying the professional detachment of people who'd seen too much to be impressed by wealth or power. "Mr. Moretti," the woman said, "I'm Special Agent Rodriguez. We have a warrant to search this property in connection with an ongoing investigation into international smuggling operations." "What operations specifically?" Luca asked, his voice giving nothing away. "I think you know, sir. We've been building a case for 18 months. We have testimony from former associates, documentation of illegal transactions, evidence of smuggled antiquities and pharmaceuticals." She turned to Eliza. "Miss Ricci, we'd like to ask you some questions about your employment with Mr. Moretti." Terror threatened to overwhelm rational thought, but Eliza forced herself to breathe. "What kind of questions?" "Questions about the research you conducted, the databases you accessed, the reports you prepared on international dealers and buyers." "I'm happy to cooperate," Eliza said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I'd like my lawyer present." "Of course, we can arrange that." The next hours were a nightmare of questions and accusations, of lawyers and careful answers, of watching federal agents search through Luca's files and computers. They found nothing, because Luca had spent the past year meticulously cleaning house, transitioning operations, covering tracks with the same thoroughness he'd once applied to hiding them. By evening, the agents were frustrated but empty-handed. "This isn't over," Rodriguez said as they prepared to leave. "We know what you were, Mr. Moretti. We know what you did, and we're going to prove it." "You're welcome to try," Luca replied, his tone pleasant. "But you'll find my operations are completely legitimate now, have been for months." After they left, Eliza collapsed onto the sofa, adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. "Is it really over, or are they coming back?" "They'll try, but they won't find anything because there's nothing to find, not anymore." Luca sat beside her, pulling her against him. "I'm sorry. I thought I'd closed all the doors before they could come knocking. You can't erase the past, we both know that." "No, but I can keep it from destroying our future." He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "I meant what I said about going legitimate, about building something clean. This is just the last ghost coming back to haunt us. And if they find something, if there's evidence you missed, then I deal with it. But you and Sophia stay clear. That's non-negotiable." Eliza was quiet for a long moment, processing the fear and relief and exhaustion. Finally, she said, "Ask me again." "Ask you what?" "To marry you. Ask me again." Understanding dawned in his expression. Eliza Ricci, will you marry me? Will you take a former criminal with a complicated past and help him build a future worth living? Will you let me be a father to your daughter and a partner in this beautifully messy life we're creating? Yes, she whispered, on one condition. Anything. You can never lie to me. Not about the past, not about threats, not about anything. I need complete honesty or this doesn't work. I promise, complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. Then yes, I'll marry you. He kissed her with enough intensity to steal her breath, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer like he could merge their bodies through sheer force of will. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliza laughed. We're really doing this, getting married, raising a child, building a life from the wreckage of everything that came before. We really are. He pressed his forehead to hers. No more running, no more hiding, just us, choosing each other every day. I can live with that. They married in December, exactly 1 year after the night Eliza had almost lost Sophia. A small ceremony in the Montana compound with only their closest people present. Elena, Marco, Maya, sober for over a year now. A few of Luca's legitimate business associates who'd become genuine friends. Daniel attended via video call, giving his blessing with grace that surprised Eliza. She deserves to be happy, he said. And if Moretti makes her happy, then I'm grateful to him for being the man I couldn't be. Sophia, nearly 11 months old and learning to walk, toddled down the aisle in a tiny white dress, eliciting laughter and delighted applause when she plopped down halfway and refused to move. She's your daughter, Luca murmured to Eliza, watching their daughter's stubborn sit-in. She's our daughter, Eliza corrected, and she's perfect. The ceremony was simple. Heartfelt vows, exchanged rings, a kiss that felt like sealing a promise they'd been keeping all along. Afterward, at the reception, Maya pulled Eliza aside. I'm proud of you, Maya said, tears in her eyes, for surviving everything and coming out stronger, for giving me a second chance, for building this life. I'm proud of you too, for getting sober, for staying sober, for becoming someone Sophia can look up to. You really think she'll look up to me? I think she'll love her aunt who shows her that mistakes don't define us, that we can choose to be better. They hugged, the embrace carrying echoes of childhood and shared grief, and the slow process of healing. As the evening progressed, Eliza found herself on the terrace where this had all begun, where Luca had first kissed her, where she jumped to save her unborn daughter, where she'd made 100 impossible choices that had led to this moment. Luca joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Happy? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. But yes, happy. Good, because I have a wedding present for you. Luca, we agreed no gift. It's not a thing. It's a place. He turned her to face him. Remember how you said Sophia needs to grow up in the real world, not a fortress? Yes. I bought us a bookstore. Eliza's breath caught. What? A small, independent bookstore in the city. It's been struggling, needs renovation, requires someone with research expertise and a love of literature to bring it back to life. He smiled. I thought maybe you'd be interested in the project. Building something that's entirely yours. Something Sophia can grow up around. Books and stories and people discovering new worlds. Tears blurred her vision. You bought me a bookstore. I bought us a future. The bookstore just comes with it. She laughed through her tears, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted like promises and possibility. Inside, Sophia started crying, her I'm tired and overwhelmed cry that they'd learned to recognize. They went to her together, Luca scooping her up while Eliza grabbed her favorite blanket. Shh, baby girl, Luca murmured, swaying gently. It's been a big day, hasn't it? Too many people, too much excitement. Sophia's cries quieted to hiccups, her tiny hand fisting in his shirt. You know what I think? Eliza said softly, watching her husband calm their daughter. I think we're going to be okay. All of us. Better than okay, Luca promised. We're going to be extraordinary. 6 months later, Eliza stood in the newly renovated bookstore. The story continues, she'd named it, and marveled at what they'd built. Restored hardwood floors, comfortable reading nooks, shelves organized by genre and discovery rather than strict alphabetical order. A children's section with bright colors and tiny chairs where Sophia loved to pull books off shelves and read in her toddler gibberish. The grand opening drew a modest crowd, local readers, curious neighbors, a few of Luca's business contacts who'd developed genuine appreciation for literature through his transformation. Maya came, helping with the register, proving through small, consistent actions that her sobriety was real. Daniel came too, bringing his daughter a children's book about brave girls who went on adventures. "Thought Sophia might like it someday," he said, "when she's old enough to understand the words." "She'll love it," Eliza assured him. "Thank you." Their relationship had settled into something functional. Not friendship exactly, but cordial cooperation focused entirely on Sophia's well-being. He saw her twice a month, supervised visits that had gradually become more relaxed as he proved himself trustworthy. Luca appeared in the late afternoon with Sophia on his shoulders, her delighted squeals announcing their arrival. "How's it going?" he asked, swinging their daughter down. "Beautifully. We've sold 30 books, signed up 12 people for membership cards, and had 3 requests for special orders. That's my brilliant wife." He kissed her, then crouched to let Sophia toddle toward the children's section. "Think she'll grow up loving books as much as you do?" "I think she'll grow up loving whatever she chooses to love. We're just providing options." "Good philosophy." They watched Sophia pull books off the shelf with determined enthusiasm, making her happy babbling sounds. "You know what I realized?" Eliza said quietly. "What's that?" "A year and a half ago, I thought my life was ending. Divorce, unexpected pregnancy, getting blackmailed into working for a criminal." She leaned into Luca's warmth. "But it wasn't ending. It was just beginning. All of this, the bookstore, our marriage, Sophia, building something real, it only exists because I was brave enough to survive the hard parts." "You were always brave. You just needed circumstances that let you prove it." "We both needed that." He pulled her closer. "I love you, Eliza Moretti. Thank you for taking a chance on a man who didn't deserve it. You deserved a chance to become someone better. We all do." She turned to kiss him properly. "And for what it's worth, I love you too. Both the man you were and the man you've become." Sophia's laughter echoed through the bookstore, pure and joyful, the sound of a child who would grow up surrounded by love and stories and parents who'd fought their way to happiness. Outside, the city moved through its rhythms, people rushing to appointments, to lovers, to lives that made sense. But inside the story continues, 3 people had found something rarer than sense. They'd found home. Not in a place, but in each other. And that, Eliza thought, was the best story of all. The one where broken pieces became beautiful, where blackmail became love, where a woman who thought she had nothing left to lose discovered she had everything to gain, where a criminal chose redemption, where a premature baby fought her way to thriving, where a family was built not from blood or circumstance, but from choice and courage and the radical act of believing in second chances. Their story wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and would always carry echoes of how it began. But it was theirs, and it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.